What up, everybody? Welcome to the X-Cast. Right about now, we want to welcome you to the greatest podcast on earth, hosted by yours truly, the XSP. I want to hear you say X-Cast. X-Cast. X-Cast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the XCast with XSP. That's me. What is going on today? We got a great show for you. I got lead singer for the Acoustic Rangers, known as Sosa, in the house. Before we get to that, though, before we get to all that, let me pay some bills, so to speak. You all know me as the XSP. That is the XSP-Extreme Street Preacher. You can find me on all streaming platforms. You can find me at bandcamp.com under the XSP238.bandcamp.com. You can also, if you love, all different kinds of shows and things like that, or all different kinds of stories, you can look up A Burning Hope podcast on Spotify. That's with my brother Renee Torres, a brother from another mother. Also, you can look up Project Restore from Jason Garcia, which is my blood brother, my actual brother, and that's going to be on Spotify as well. Also, let's say you think, man, that guy XSP PJ, man, he's a good guy. You might want to donate a little bit to what he's doing. You can do that. You can do that at PayPal at DemonSlayerXSP@yahoo.com. So, without further ado, though, no real news other than I got one more song to record still on my Hell's Most Wanted album, which I'm hoping to be out either August or September, depending on when the collaborations come back, all the features come back. Other than that, though, keep it steady, keep it moving. Keep doing this music thing, keep doing the podcast thing. You know what I mean? You can also find, I forgot to mention, the XCast with XSP on Spotify, and I'll be putting up older things that I've done. I've been doing this podcast thing for a long time. It just continues to evolve. I've been doing this probably for about 6-7 years, something like that. So on different platforms now, it's available through the visual format, and it's going well. Got a lot of guests. Got some guests lined up in the future. So, with all that out of the way, all that information, let's get to the real stuff. Let's get to why you're here. Because the guests, right? We're here because the guests. My guest, like I said, is Alan Sosa, lead singer of the Acoustic Rangers, educator, and wrestling fanatic. So all those things. Also part of our Beyond the Desk series. So without further ado, let's get to that. Mr. Sosa, what's going on?
What's up, my friend?
How you doing, man? Welcome to the XCast with XSP. I'm glad that you had the time to come on the show. I was just hyping it up. You're an educator. You're a wrestling fanatic, lead singer for a band. You have all these different things about you. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, my friend. I can't complain. Today's my birthday, so I'm blessed.
Snap. Happy birthday!
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
That's wild. Happy birthday!
Thank you.
Cool, man. So I always tell people about when they're on the show, we're not going to talk about COVID-19 or none of the dumb junk going on out in the world. We just want to keep it entertaining. We want to keep it positive. And but before we get into all these different things that we want to talk about, have you ever seen anything that you couldn't explain, like lights in the sky, Bigfoot, paranormal phenomena, anything in your life, all throughout your life? Tell us about it.
Yeah, man. Well, growing up, I was born in Austin and grew up, the house I grew up in was next door to my grandparents' house. And my great-great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather built it, I think that's right, in 1902, somewhere around there. Anyhow, growing up, we would always see weird stuff going on over there. You know, there would be doors slamming and, you know, like just strange sounds, you know. And so one of the last things that my parents ended up selling that property, one of the last things we did after my grandfather passed away in 1996, we took a video. We were going to go video inside the house, me and my mom. So we took an old school, you know, camcorder in there and set it up and let it run for about an hour. And it was around March. It was cool outside. We went in that house. It was so hot. Like, it was just like oppressively hot. There was like no oxygen feeling. It was just, I mean, like intense. So we go grab the camera, trying to get out of the house. Well, the door, you know, we had a padlock on the door. It wouldn't lock, right? It's like, it's just stuck. And so, you know, I'm like, my mom's like, I can't get it. I can't lock it. Can't get it. Well, I'm looking in the house and there's like this, I don't know how to explain it. Just this big, like gray looking, like, I don't know, cloud thing moving towards the door. So I'm getting tripped out now. And I was 20, I guess, at the time. And I knocked my mom out of the way and grabbed the lock and like slam it as best I can. And it finally locks. And so anyhow, we go put this video on, and the craziest thing, you just heard like whispering kind of noises, and like it was all in Spanish, you know, and it was real fast. And then I heard like it was in Latin, because I took Latin, like my 6th grade year, we had to take a like 9 weeks of it at middle school. So I could understand it a little bit, but it was so fast that you couldn't really like grasp what it was saying. And like sometimes you would see these little like points of light pop up and then they would be gone. Camera would go in and out of focus for whatever reason. And so I don't know, you know, I back then I thought, ooh, this must be ghosts or something. But, you know, as I've gotten older, I've, you know, come to believe it's something else. But definitely different, and definitely, you know, stuff that, you know, was unexplainable really then, other than, you know, thinking it was, you know, some kind of ghost thing or whatnot. But yeah, I have tons of stories from back then. Me and my brother getting tripped out.
How often would that kind of stuff happen in those houses, or in the house?
Yeah, it just, I mean, it was pretty regular. I mean, like, you know, we had to live there because the house that I first lived at growing, I was up to 8. It ended up catching on fire, and we had to rebuild the house. And we lived there for about 6 months. And you would just kind of have this feeling sometime. It wasn't all the time, but sometimes this feeling of like, kind of like oppression maybe. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, you would just have this kind of sense of fear that would take over you. And, you know, you'd be sitting there and all of a sudden the door would just slam shut, you know, as hard as possible. And one of like, I always tell this story, and it's always it's slightly embarrassing, but I was 8 years old. I was using the restroom facilities, and I'm sitting there and I'm getting this feeling, you know, of like dread kind of. And all of a sudden there was an entrance to get into the restroom, and a doorway. And so all of a sudden these like 3 big like suitcases like just throw themselves to block the entrance. Well, I freaked out and I ran. I jumped over these suitcases, fell. My grandma she would lock the bathroom from the outside, so you couldn't get out. So I'm sitting there like banging on this door, and I'm getting ready. I was 8, but I was a big dude. I was getting ready just to smash through this wooden doors. So I wanted to get out of that room. And that was, you know, I was like screaming and yelling, and my grandpa comes in there, and he has a rifle. And I mean, he's ready to like throw down, and it was just the suitcase just thrown over. So I mean, it was pretty regular. He would wake up and he would have scratches on his back and stuff, and you know, they would start praying and they would go away. But I mean, it was a pretty regular thing that stuff would happen, go on around there. You would just feel like a sense of, you know, being watched, or like it's just really hard to kind of explain. And so, but we have, you know, like I said, I have a ton of stories of stuff that happened over there.
So did that carry over into your adult life, or was that just kind of something you experienced as a kid?
You know, Not really. I mean, so, here's the thing. Like, I was saved at, when I was 22. And, so I kind of stopped really kind of like opening myself up to those type of things. I don't know what they are. I don't know if I won't say that they're ghosts. I won't, I don't know what it was, but I know that from what I've come to believe and what I've come to study, that the devil uses all kinds of things to distract you. And, I think those are kind of demonic things, and I don't try to open myself up to those things anymore. I do find that if I do watch a movie like that or whatnot, I kind of feel myself opening to those things. And, if I'm out and about, I kind of have that sense at times of like something's just not right. And so I kind of start praying and thinking about, good things. So, heavenly things and not those type of things. So I don't know. I wish sometimes I want to go because they knocked my house down that I grew up at, and they knocked my grandparents' house down, and they had a little house that they had built. My grandfather had built in the back, and I kind of want to go there sometimes. And as they built these giant, McMansion things on them, and ask them like, "Has anything ever weird ever happened here?" You can see like if that still carries on, or since they've built over that stuff, is it done? I know that the area I grew up at around Austin back in the mid 1800s, it was a graveyard area, and so my grandfather had found like some tombstones out in the back of his yard. He would be digging out there for a garden and stuff. So I don't know, but as an adult, I've not witnessed that. I will share, and I know I'm talking a lot.
That's all right. That's why we're here. Go ahead.
I do have a good friend of mine that lives in Austin, and one day we were over there. I went over there, and I felt like as soon as I opened the door, I felt like that kind of oppressed feeling again, and I was just standing there talking with her, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, do you mind if I pray? And she's like, why? I was like, I just really feel like it's not a nice, it's just something not good here, something not, it's just bad feeling. She's like, you feel that? I said, yeah. She's like, okay, I thought I was crazy because I've been feeling the same thing, but I don't think it's bad. I'm like, it's not liking whatever. So, like I started praying out loud, and all of a sudden, like two of her doors just slammed shut, one in the bathroom and then one in the bedroom. We were in the kitchen, like I was helping her, take cabinets out and stuff. And I mean, it was like that. And I was like, I got to get out. I got to go for a walk or get some air, because it was pretty intense. But that's really the only thing as an adult, and I've stayed over there at times, and I've experienced, kind of those things again. And so it's just interesting. Like most of the time though, I don't
Which
have.
makes sense because it looks like you have a biblical worldview. And would you mind sharing your how you got saved? I mean, I love to hear the stories of how people's lives were changed. It looked like you had a big change in your life. Can you tell us a little bit of what led up to your salvation and the events that happened around that time?
Yeah, man. Well, like I said, I was 22. I kind of went through my teenage years kind of separating myself from God. I lost my grandma when I was 14. I was a freshman in high school. And at the same time, my dad got into a really bad wreck. He worked with Loomis Armored in Austin. It ended up becoming disabled. And at the time, I just kind of thought, well, if God is such a loving God, like he wouldn't let this happen. He wouldn't have taken my grandma, because she helped raise me, she's a Mexicana, so she was, always there, and I kind of stepped away, and I didn't really believe in God. Now I kind of, curse him and whatnot. And so I went through my teen years. Around 19, a friend of mine from high school died in a car wreck. And so kind of shook me up a little bit. And then about a week later, I had a Camaro at the time because I thought I was, big shot. And so I was racing it, and I had two of my friends with me, and we're racing, and all of a sudden, like, this truck kind of boxes me in, and I can't go past him. And I'm coming up to like a gas truck, an 18-wheeler, and at the last moment, I was able to slam on the brakes and then like do a donut in the middle of 290 in Austin. And like I just drove. I remember driving to Jim's restaurant in Oak Hill, and I sat there for a little bit, and I just thought, as I had like, I had this like sensation in me of like, you need to stop, And so like I didn't really understand at the time, and I didn't understand like, why didn't we just die right there? Like, we should have just died. I mean, because literally we were like feet from smashing into the back of this gasoline truck. And so I started going to church, and I started reading and the Bible, and then others. I still struggled though with everything, because I still struggled with, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to be, Jesus doesn't want me. Like, I'm a horrible person. I may not be as horrible as other people, but I'm not good enough. And so a good buddy of mine, his name was Blake McGee, and I had a friend in high school. I had several friends. Sherry Stewart, she was always sharing with me, all the time in high school, like, I'm praying for you. God wants a relationship. Jesus wants a relationship with you. And, at the time in high school, I was like, whatever, like, I just want to talk to you because you're a cute girl, So, but my friend Blake, I worked with him at the store in Austin, and he started sharing with me, and he was involved a lot with stuff in Texas State with their like evangelical stuff that they were doing here. But again, I always came to that. But we would meet for dinner, and he would share with me the gospel and everything, and I would still say, well, that's great, but I'm not good enough. And so he ended up.
Real quick, I just want to make a statement that you have no idea how many people have thought I'm not good enough, and myself included.
Oh yeah.
I've always, there were times where I'd throw my middle fingers in the air at God and say, show yourself, and things like that. And it's crazy how, we have that attitude of, hey man, you don't want me because I'm too dirty, or I'm too, whatever the case is. And
Yeah.
It's funny seeing other people having that same kind of experience, because like I said, I've experienced the exact same thing right up until I fully surrendered. And it's awesome. Keep telling your story. I love it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, like I said, I can talk and talk. So anyhow, we both had a connection with music, and he turned me on to the music of Rich Mullins. And Rich Mullins wrote, Awesome God, Sing Your Praise to the Lord. And something about his words, I mean, he was very, like, biblical, and he would write lyrics, and I really started connecting to that, and kind of, getting closer. And then he gave me the book, Case for Faith and Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, and Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. So I started reading those books, and fast forward to, it was August 24th, 2020. Yeah, 2000. And I just remember driving. I was out driving in the country, and I was listening to the music, and, like, I was crying, I was upset, and just kind of, like, I had been kind of, drinking and just leading not a good life, like, I wasn't bad, and I wasn't like drinking every day or every weekend, but it just wasn't the person I was, and I wanted to be. And like, I had this like voice kind of speak to me, like, just stop running, just be you, just be the person I want you to be. And I remember pulling off the road off of 1826, and just saying, all right, God, like, like, I really don't know everything, but I know that the life I'm leading right now is not the life that you would want, and I give it all to you. I know that I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to fail, and I'm going to take 2 steps forward and then fall back about 5 more. But I know that you got me, no matter what, and no matter all the, any mistakes I make in life. I know that you're always going to be there for me, and I surrender to you. And so I just remember I pulled out of the car, got out of the car, and I just prayed this, whatever prayer I could think of in my head to ask for forgiveness and ask him to be a part of my life. And that was it, like, I look at my life, pre that and then post that. And, life isn't easy, but, it says in the Bible, it's not going to be, but I know through all that time, that's been 24 years now, 23 years, that God has always been beside me, no matter what. Even during the darkest valleys, he's been there to get me through. And so, like, I'm grateful for that. I'm blessed. I have to not go back and like knock myself and doubt myself and beat myself up for the mistakes and failures I do, but I turn those over to God and say, help me, like, make me a better man, make me the man that you need me to be, and I never kind of want to lose that thought, and I've made, stupid mistakes, along the way, but I know that he's a good father and that he's taken care of me and blessed me in ways that, I'm not, the old me would say I'm not deserving of, but the new me in Christ says, thank you, Lord. Like, thank you for giving me those blessings.
Man, that's amazing. So let's transition a little bit into, okay, you have a change of heart. Did that affect your decision on getting into special education, or what was the lead up to getting into special education? How long you been working with special education, and did that kind of affect the reason why you got into special education?
Yeah, well, kind of. I mean, it was, and so I had like shortly after that, I started teaching at a school in Austin. I was an kindergarten after school teacher, but I worked the whole day at the school. I would just kind of go in and just take care of different rooms. And so finally I was a kindergarten assistant. And so we would have special education students, but they were, like, either they had Asperger's or autism, or they had a hearing impairment. And I loved it. I loved working with kids. I always loved working with kids growing up. I just, I wanted to help them, and that was just kind of always a thing. Prior to teaching, I was working at Motorola, so I was making real good money. But I wasn't fulfilled, in here. Like, it was just money, and I didn't have any type of fulfillment in that. And so when I started teaching, I found that fulfillment. I found, like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I worked at the school for 12 years, and it was in Austin, and the commute back and forth from Austin to San Marcos was killing me, and I would pray and about finding a job here at the school district here in San Marcos. And so, needless to say, though, like, special education students and people, and I feel bad for saying this now, but I was really scared of those people back, even as a young Christian and as a kid. Like, they would scare me. They would make me, real anxious and stuff. And I really, at the church I used to go to, like, I didn't want to greet them. Like, I would be like, oh my gosh, like, and it's bad, but that's just how it was. And so,
I'm sure you probably grew up along the same lines. As a lot of times a special needs person will be kept in the back room and nobody really messed with them. Or
that's
it
right.
was like, whoa, don't mess with them. They're crazy. It was a misunderstanding. I know a lot of when I grew up, a lot of the like, I had a grandpa that they would just keep him in the back. I think he had a stroke, and they treated him like he was like, oh, obviously you have different needs after having a stroke, but that's kind of the way that they treated him, was like, hey, he's in the back, don't mess with him.
Yeah.
Whatever. And I'm sure you probably come up with that same kind of generation and it does do something to you if you're not open to changing your mindset.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, so fast forward this summer, going into that, I had some issues with the school I was at, and kind of started praying about it. And then I applied for like 3 jobs here in the district. The one that called me back was for Crossroads with the high school, the 18 plus. And I didn't really know anything about it, but I know that when I got the call for the interview, I was like, okay. I went back to my classroom and God, like, he spoke to me, and it had to be God. He's like, because every other time I would get an interview, I would tell them at work, like, oh, like I need to leave a little early today, or I would make up an excuse. I wouldn't say it was for an interview because I was scared of losing my job. So, but that day, he's like, if you trust me, you need to tell them the truth of why you're not going to be, you need to be honest. And man, it killed me. I like sat in my room and I was struggling. One of the other like teachers, like, are you okay? You look like you're like nervous. I'm like, no, I'm fine. So finally I was like, okay. Went and told the director, and she's like, I understand, I wish you luck, and you're not going to lose your job if nothing happens. Like, it happens, if this is something better for you, go for it. So I went for the interview with Miss Lloyd and Miss Rose and Miss Emma, and they kind of told me what I would be doing and whatnot. I was like, yeah, we had the interview and it was good. And the next day I got the call saying, hey, you're with us. And so I knew that I had to be honest with God and honest with everybody else. And I know that he was going to teach me, because I think sometimes God uses situations like that, like, oh, okay, you don't like these people or you don't like them. I'm going to teach you to love them. And I'm going to show you how it is to love somebody. If you following like me, I never turn people away. I'm going to teach you. And that was kind of how it is, like I started and I was kind of like lost at first, but I had a lot of help, I had a lot of people that would be encouraging me. And ultimately, I learned to love those kids, that first group of kids, man, like I still talk with some of them here on Facebook, and I'll see them out in public and whatnot, and we, hug it up or, handshake or whatever. And, I learned how to love and have empathy and realize that they're just like me. They're no different than I am. That we all have limitations in this world where nobody's perfect. And, whether it's a limitation of, moving or walking or thinking or speaking, we all have limitations in this world. And so how am I to judge them when I have my own issues? And so that's kind of how I got to be like that, there. And so I've been doing special education now since 2012. So this will be going on 8 years working. And so, but it's, it's been great. Even the hard times and the challenges, they teach you things. And like there's always ways to get better and ways to do things. But more than anything, like I tell, the people I work with are people that I talk to. I'll tell them about my day and they're like, oh my gosh, like, how do you deal with that? I couldn't do that. Oh, and I'm like, well, like I have kids. And at the end of the day, even if my kids learned nothing that day, as long as they were loved and they were taken care of, that's what it matters to me. And that's what I kind of think about with my kids at good night. Like, even if we can't get through any type of like worksheet or learning, I loved those kids and I took care of them. I made sure they were safe. And, that's all you can ask for as a parent or as an educator,
Yeah, sometimes you do go throughout the day like, what did I even teach these kids? What went across? I know that there's those challenges that are they even receiving anything? Because
Right.
they don't. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes maybe they're not able to speak what they learn, or depending on which ones you have. I have a little more higher functioning kids, and sometimes even then you're like, are you receiving anything? Like, did I even teach you anything today? But
Yeah.
that you gave them a handshake, you played a game with them, they smiled, and sometimes that's all you can even ask for, because
Yep.
they're having their own issues in their head. They're having their own issues back at home or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
I know the first day that I went in my mind, I'm like, man, this is gonna be a circus. It's gonna be, all kinds of wild. So, what was the first day like? And I know you work with Cross. Was there a little bit more, maybe a little higher functioning? But were there some challenges that first day in Crossroads? Tell us a little bit about some of the difficulties that you ran into.
Yeah, well, like I remember, the trainings leading up to the first day, and I was primarily going to be taking care of one student who was, you know, had, his autism was severe. He was nonverbal. He would get angry, would grab your, collar. You had to watch out because he would grab your lanyard. He said he would pull hair, so I had to make sure I got my hair cut short so there was not much to grab. And, we had cares from Texas State come in, and they sat with me and gave me paperwork to read and things I should do and whatnot. And here's his iPad. These are the things you're going to work. It was just a lot of information. And, in your head, you're trying to make sure okay, I got to do this. I can't say this. I got to do this, and all these things. And so it was, I knew how to love on kids and to help them, but at the time, no amount of training is going to help you be in that moment of okay, there he goes, he got you, he's scrapping you.
It's always you learn the textbook situation, but when that thing happens, it's a whole different ball game.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So yeah, so it was just kind of okay, don't make a big reaction. Just take his fingers off, or whatever. Or he got your lanyard. Just walk his fingers off. Don't make a big deal. Don't do nothing. And so that was kind of the hard thing, because, where I came from when I was working with, kindergartner kids, age kids or preschool, you have an advantage to hey, come on, I told you not to be doing that. That's really, you're not making nice choices with your whatever, to looking just flat faced and kid has me by the neck, what was going to happen. So yeah, it was just challenges like that. Luckily though, the ladies I worked with were super helpful, and they poured so much into me to help me and to realize you're not making mistakes, you're fine, you're good. And so that's the one great thing about, either working with Crossroads or, being, knowing the people that, we worked with Miss Lovelace and Ms. Voigt, and, even if they weren't a part of us, they were still around us. So I still felt comfortable to say, hey, this is going on. What do you think? Oh yeah, just do this, and it'll solve everything. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it was that didn't work for me.
Well, shout out real quick to Amy Lovelace and Shannon Voigt. They are the ones that hired me, and I'm forever grateful, because it was at a time when, man, I had no job for about 8 months, and things were starting to get rough. So they offered me the job, the position. I grabbed on real quick. So shout out to them real quick. They're the OGs in my mind of special education. Anyway, all right.
Yeah, definitely.
So all right, so you're kind of having a change of heart, and I know that things are get difficult at times. It's almost like you master the art of being calm while all hell is breaking loose in in the area. Was there ever a time where you thought, man, this just is not for me? Did you ever have a day or a situation where you were just like, man, I'm done? And what brought you back?
Yeah, I think anybody, I think any of us, we listen to things that kind of you're not good enough for this job. What are you doing here? You're not worth it. You're failing. There was so many times, during that first year, even now, even this past year, where you're you get cussed out or whatever, you're or punched up or whatever. You're is this really worth my time? Like, am I even doing anything? But what I try to do is I pray a lot during the day. You know, in my head constantly, I'm praying for myself to not, get to, I like to stay in the middle. I don't like to be too high or too low. And sometimes that may come across as like, well, I guess he just is not too excited. He's just kind of like there. But for me, that's the most important thing, because if a kid is, having a hard day, and I don't know what they're dealing with. I don't know, like, I'm going to say just from experience that their home life is probably terrible. It's hard. And so I have to really kind of think about that. And my thoughts is that I don't know where they're coming from. I can have an idea in my head, and, even if they have the perfect home life at home, their parents are tired and they struggle with it. And it's every day, 24/7 for those people. And so I just try to have empathy, constantly thoughts of empathy for those students. But yeah, I mean, there's countless times where I think, at the end of the day, I'll just walk out and think, is this worth it? But then, like you think about the good days, the good times, or even like if we had a moment of I have a student, and I won't get into particulars, but I have a student who loves to yell at me, cuss at me, punch me, call me all kinds of names. And one day he was just having a pretty rough day. And it was towards the end, before the year ended. And he got sick. And so like I was taking care of him, and, he's still, like cussing at me or whatnot. And so I was like, hey, let's go. We're going to go to the nurse, man. We're going to go sit in there. And so we're sitting in there, and so I go in this room, and I'm sitting in the nurse's office with him. He's like, I'm sorry, Sosa. I said, it's okay, buddy. Like, it's all right. I'm sorry I cussed at you. I'm sorry I called you fat. Sorry I called you stupid. I was like, it's all right, man. He's like, I love you. I was like, I love you too, but can I give you a hug? I'm like, okay, you're kind of sick, but okay. So it's little things like that, you kind of hold on to, so that when you do have those tough days and those rough days where like I'm out, you can hold on to and remember that's why I'm here. It's not, it may not be, we may not get to learn anything, or we may not do these things, but for that moment, at least I was there for that kid, and I was able to comfort him and love on him and kind of reassure him that it's okay. And, I think a lot of us, if we just had one person kind of reassure us throughout the day, it's okay. Keep going.
Yeah, those moments really carry on. Like in just my situation, I've been stabbed, bitten, all kinds of nonsense. And you think, you're like, man, I could be doing something way better with my time. But then there's those moments where it's like you're at a bowling, for Special Olympics, and it's a party, and everyone's like, oh snap, it's like, ah! And everyone just goes off and like, oh snap, well, this is where I'm supposed to be.
That's right.
those moments like that. Like you said, though, you making more money, way more money somewhere else, but in your heart, you wouldn't be satisfied.
Right.
No amount of money can satisfy that you're doing something great with your life by reaching these lives, the lives of these kids, and that they can look up to you as a kind of like as a strong tower, if you will. Like, hey, this guy's gonna be here, and I know that I can rely on him, and I know that that I can kind of come to him when I have an issue or whatever the case. That's the most gratifying thing in the as far as working with youth, is that they know that you're there for them, and that they can take a chance on you, and you'll be there, and you won't be like everybody else in their life probably that just kind of washes them away or whatever the case. And I'm sure you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had a kid at Crossroads once, and he was out in the between the portables there, because we used to be by the Centro Cultural Center, and he's out there like just rapping away and cussing, and They have this elderly lady that lived across the street, and she comes up, she's like, "I'm about to call the police on you," and no, 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 no. And he was a big dude, big African American kid. I'm like, let's go out there. I'm like, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. We'll take him in. I'm gonna call the police." I'm like, "No, he's not. He's just rapping. He's not meaning anything." So I bring him inside, and I was like, let's calm down. Go sit down. Like it's gonna be lunchtime soon. And all I hear is this wham. And one of the other kids comes over and he's like, "Mr. Allen, he put his fist through the wall." So I go in there and huge hole, right? And I'm like, "Hey, come on over here. You can't be doing that." "I can't be doing that." "No, you cannot be doing that." "I'm going to do it more." I said, "No, you're not. You're going to sit down. You're going to calm down, and we're going to get ready for lunch." And he just looks at me and he's like, "I'm going to kill you." So I'm like, so the kid that's like, next to me that was like my kind of helper buddy, like he looks big eyed, and so I kind of grabbed this chair to like slowly pull it between me and him. I was like, "You're not gonna do it." I was like, "You're gonna sit down." I was like, "When Miss Lloyd gets back, I'm gonna take you home. Like you're done with the day. You need to go home and cool out." "I need to go home." Like, yes. And so I wasn't really gonna kill you. I said, "I know." So I'm driving him home, and he's like, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "I know you're sorry." He's like, "Tomorrow's a new day." I said, "Tomorrow is a brand new day, dude." I was like, "Right now is a new day." I was like, "We're not even going to worry about it. Just go home, listen to your music, and tomorrow we're going to get back after it, right?" "Yes, I love you, Mr. Allen." "Oh, I love you too, buddy." So get back to the portable, and this student of mine, he's like, "I was really scared for you. What were you going to do if he tried to attack you?" I said, "Did you see when I pulled the chair between me and him?" "Yes, I did see that." I said, "Good." I was like, because that was my barrier, because I had about 2 seconds to jump to the next room, hopefully shut the door real fast. And I was like, "You were going to call 911. You know how to dial 911 on your cell phone?" "Yes, I do. 911. Where's the 11?" I said, "No, no. 11." I was like, "We're going to practice it."
Yeah, man. So let's transition a little bit.
Yeah.
You're somewhat of a local legend here. You have your own time slot at Wake the Dead. You're the lead singer for the Acoustic Rangers Win. Well, let's talk about how you got your permanent spot there at Wake the Dead, which is a coffee house here in San Marcos. Very well known, very eccentric. Tell us about it. Tell us about your music and some of your gigs, maybe.
Yeah.
How have those been going? Or obviously not going anywhere right now in the past couple months, but before that, you're basically had a permanent spot there.
Yeah, definitely. That's, shout out for Julie Bachman. She's the owner over there, and she's always good with locals and, you know, giving times to people. And so it kind of was like that, back in 2014, I just lost both of my parents, within 6 months of each other. And I started, a friend of mine encouraged me to start writing songs again, because I was dealing with a lot of just, stuff, and the kind of depression from that. And started writing some music again. I wrote music, in my early 20s, and then I kind of just stopped. It just wasn't that important to me anymore. And so started writing music, and I got my first gig I got playing at the farmer's market. And so played out there, and I started looking for coffee houses, and I saw Wake the Dead, and so emailed Julie. She's like, "Yeah, come on, you want to do you want to do an hour, you want to do 2 hours, you want to do 3 hours?" And at the time, like I thought, like, how about an hour? Like at the time, songs that I thought were good enough to play that I'd written, I'd only had like a handful. I thought they were good enough to play in public, and the rest were, covers. And so I played, and, I was super nervous, super anxious, because, like, I just never done that. You really, like playing something that I wrote to, like to me, I may think it's good, but like, like, but somebody else may think, "Oh, that's trash." Like, why are you even doing that? And it's those same things, those thoughts of doubt, that voice that starts saying, "You're not good enough to do that. Why are you playing? You're horrible. You're not that great of a singer. You're not that great of a guitarist, blah, blah, blah." anyhow, so I started. I played that first gig, and then like, okay, I can do 45 minutes of music, decently. And so started contacting her and playing once a month there. And about a couple of years in, she's like, hey, like, I'd like to give you your own night, since you're that way you don't have to worry about contacting me or setting anything up. You've been playing, and would you want to do that? And I was like, well, yeah, like, like if you think that, you know, that, I'm good enough for that, like, like, yeah, that'd be great. She's like, how about third Thursdays of each month? And I'm like, sure, like that would be great. Like that was always something that was a dream of mine in my head, growing up when I was a kid. Like I was always into music growing up. My dad played in bands in Austin in the late 60s and 70s. And so when I was a baby and a kid, he'd always have his drums set up in the bedroom. And so, like, some of my earliest memories of him having his gigantic, 1970s headphones on and just going to town on his Ludwig kit. And so music has always been this huge thing in my life. And well, I mean, this is like, so we're chasing rabbits when I talk. So like my sixth grade.
Here's something to think about. What was there ever any embarrassing moments or moments that you're just like, man, I'm not gonna do this ever again? You know what I mean? That you want to share?
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like when I'm performing, we're performing up there. Like we all sometimes miss a chord. I miss a vocal. Like it's a lot, because I've written so many songs in the last 6 years now that it's I can't remember them all. I can't remember all the lines. I do good to try to memorize it, but I still have my little, cheat sheets there that I can look down upon and say, oh yeah. So I don't know, like to me, when you're in the moment of performing and playing, like if I mess up like terribly, I just kind of laugh it off, and then from my guys, my lead guitarist is John Zavala, and he's another. To me, he's a legend of San Marcos. He was a Marine, a vet. He came back, and I asked him to start playing with me because I needed somebody that was a much better, more accomplished guitarist. And me and him write songs. Then I asked buddy Marco Rangel to play bass, and we play all kinds of different things. And so like. And my friend Jared, he plays percussion. So for me, for them, it's like, it's just feeling, if we can play with feeling and we play with our heart, play with our soul, even if we mess up, it's, who cares? It don't matter. It's done. I see videos of some of my, like, the dudes I looked up to or the women I looked up to, and they mess up or they hit a wrong chord or they sing a wrong, something flat or something. And they just kind of laugh it off or like say, no big deal. And to me, if they can do that, then surely I can do that.
I don't know if you've seen if you've seen Vince Neil, the singer for Motley Crue. Mm-hmm. If you've seen that one where he's just like totally just screaming out his mind, but he's in his mind, hey man, he is singing to thousands of people terribly, but hey, he's up there doing it. So right. If they can do that, and guys like that can do that, then why can't we just if we miss something or whatever on a smaller scale, it doesn't really matter. Like you said, we're just playing our heart, playing our feelings. If it's we mess up or whatever the case is, so be it, and we just keep moving forward. I know one of the things I learned as being in band, like in school, if you mess up, don't make a big deal out of it. You just move on to the next thing. So that's kind of the thing that I come to learn. And it always seems like, hey man, I messed up, or you tell somebody afterwards and they're like, where did you mess up at? And I'm like, oh, never mind, I didn't then. Cool, man. Well, people definitely see you. I know that you've done things with me as far as like charity stuff, and it seems like that's where your heart is as well. Like kind of just using that as a way to get a message out. It seems like. Do you play for your church or anything like that?
Yeah, I've played guitar and bass and some drums for the church I'm going to, and so it's fun, you know. Like guitar is always going to be my primary instrument, but started picking up the bass about 10 years ago, and you know I can play the roots and I can kind of do a little bit of things on that, but I'm not a bass player. I'm a guitarist trying to be a bass player. So drums, same thing, you know, like I learned a lot from my dad, and just, you know, like I can play some things, but if it gets super complicated, like, hey, I need you to do all this fill stuff, you know, and like I can get kind of lost if it's it's too much. But you know, I kind of have to take the same. I'm trying to play the best I can for the Lord at that moment, and you know, like he's gonna forgive me if I miss a note, or if I don't hit the drum fill right, or if I may get slightly off time. He's okay with it. So, you know, there's grace. So, but it's a blessing.
Cool, man. Now I know that you're a wrestling fan. What do you think of the current state of? I know we just kind of transitioned real quick, but I know that you're a wrestling fan. What do you think of the current state of wrestling, and what got you into wrestling in the first place?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It's been rough, you know, watching the matches right now with no crowd. Like it kind of is slightly disconcerting, but you know, like they've done some really interesting things with at least WWE. I haven't been able to watch. I've seen a little bit of the AEW stuff on YouTube, but you know, I thought at WrestleMania 36, that Boneyard match with Undertaker, and I thought that was one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. You know, like it was just so different and just really, you know, like it was just awesome. You know, I felt like I did back when I was like, you know, a kid. You know, when you would see these matches, you would be like, oh wow, you know, like I was super excited, pumped.
Right,
And
like
then
on the edge of your seat, like what's gonna happen next?
I know, yeah,
You know?
so like, yeah, like the Firefly Funhouse match with Cena and the Fiend. Like, I just thought that was just, you know, like at the time I was like, man, I don't know how that sits with me. Like that's weird. But then afterwards, you know, watching it again, and I watched it like 5 or 6 times, and I thought, man, this is next level. Like, you know, like how it's taking everything and breaking everything down, and so I liked it, and I've only come back into wrestling in the last like couple of years. I didn't watch it from like the early 2000s up till 2018, and so like I ended up subscribing to the WWE network, and at the time I felt like, man, what am I doing? Like it's wrestling, you know, like oh. But like I said, it kind of it. I'll watch it, and it brings back that love of when I was a kid. I first got into wrestling. My dad used to take me to wrestling matches at the Old City Coliseum in Austin back when I was 3 or 4. So I would see, you know, I remember seeing King Kong Bundy, the Bushwhackers. I had one of the Bushwhackers grab me by the head and like lick my head when I was like 4 years old. And I still remember that because I still remember like this dude was so greasy and but you know, Junkyard Dog, I saw that, you know, like I saw these guys and but I think, you know, and I loved going, but I think it was when I saw Hulk Hogan. Like he was like, when I was a little boy, like I thought, man, that's a dude right there. You know, that I'm a real American
kind of comic book physique.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
larger than life character.
Yeah. And so that's when I, you know, really got into watching, and we wouldn't miss, you know, any of the wrestling, Saturday Night Main Event, or, you know, Monday night stuff. And then when WCW and NWA I remember I got to meet Kerry Von Erich one day. He was at this, he was paying a bill in Austin with this electric company, and we were sitting in there, and I know who it is because I think I was like 7 or 8, and I, you know, like and he's over there, and like he starts. My little sister was like 1 maybe, and he starts playing with her, and you know, he introduces himself to my mom, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she doesn't know this. Kerry Von Erich, come on, like it's a Von Erich, you know, and he introduces himself to me, and you know, like just the nicest guy, you know, like nicest man, and sat and talked with me about wrestling for a little while, and played with my little sister and whatnot, and you know, like uh, they were just, he was a good dude, you know, and so like growing up, you know, like I just loved watching this stuff. It just, you know, you just get lost in it, and you know, through the, you know, the Attitude Era, like my Stone Cold was that was my dude, or The Rock. Like both of those guys, I thought were epic performers in the ring. You know, showmen. Like they just gave it every time. And so, like, yeah, I was sitting with my son one day because they don't, you know, my daughter's like, Dad, it's like soap opera. Like that's, you can't ever comment about anything I watch because you're watching wrestling, and that's like, I'm like, oh, watch, let's see, look at this. And so they'll sit there with me and watch for a little while, and they're like, oh, that's cool, you know. And, you know, it was funny though. One day where I was watching an old episode, you know, with The Rock, and my daughter's like, is that The Rock? I was like, yeah. I thought he's an actor. I was like, no, no, no. Like he was a wrestler first, you know. So, but yeah, you know, I think where things are, I love the women wrestlers. You know, like they are much more physical, and that, you know, they put it out there. You know, like it's intense. You know, watching some of the stuff that they do. So, you know, I have mad respect for them because, man, it wasn't like that when we were kids. You know, like
Yeah, I was gonna say they seem to sometimes have better matches than the guys. Like every Raw, it seems like. Like
yeah,
I watched it. Was it 2 nights ago? And I was like, man, there was a Nia Jackson and Natalia and Charlotte Flair, I think. And
yeah,
I was like, man, this is a great match. And I watched the guys' match, and I'm like, what are they doing? Like,
yeah.
you guys need to up their game or something. Or the
That's
women
right.
just elevated to that you know, they've obviously elevated their game up since like maybe 5 years ago or something like that. And
Yeah,
yeah, there's definitely more opportunity for them. So man, it's always been a family thing, you know, like yourself. That it's always been where we all gather around, and it's. I remember in the '90s, where when we were kids, you know, my parents would always get the pay-per-views. It was on Sundays, and all my family would come over. It'd be like a whole gathering and party.
yeah,
Um, yeah, man, it's people don't understand the quality of that, that it brings people together, and you can cheer for who you want to cheer for, or boo who you want to boo for, and it's just a time to be excited. And I don't know, man, it's an awesome thing for me, and that's some things that even my daughter comes with. Oh, I don't like this guy. Oh no, this guy's gonna blah, blah, and you just kind of get into this little, you know, playful arguments or whatever. But yeah, man, wrestling has always been there. It seems like. Cool,
yeah,
man.
definitely.
Is there anything that any matches that you can say that you like totally locked you in? Maybe since the one that you're like, man, I can't forget that match, or anything like that that you can say.
Yeah, you know, like I think like a lot of people, you know, like Hulk versus Andre the Giant was that WrestleMania 5?
I think that might be
I think it was
WrestleMania 3. I think.
3. That's right. Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, I mean that match, like I remember, like you know, like I don't know how old I was, probably 10 or 11 maybe, but like you just being so like, oh my gosh, like it's Andre, you know. So like, you know, when he slams him, you know, it's like, whoa, you know, like it was just one of those moments of like, man, because you know, like I said, you know, as a kid, like Hulk Hogan was like the dude. Um, but you know, like Stone Cold's match with Bret Hart, you know, like that's just such an epic man. You know, like the was it WrestleMania as well? I can't remember, but where he, you know, he's all bloodied, you know, and it's, you know, he has him in the the sharpshooter. You know, it's just such a, you know, like, you know, those dudes have like put everything out there, you know, like they, you know, like they battered. It was funny, you know, like I guess I think it was last year, maybe it was early this year. I don't know. This like lockdown or quarantine stuff has got my brain all skewed with dates. But I remember seeing Stone Cold come. I think it was maybe Raw, like something or other. Anyhow, you know, he just wanted to thank all the fans, you know, and said like these guys have bled, these girls have bled, and they've, you know, they've cried, and we've done everything, and it's all for y'all, you know, it's all for you. And you know, like that kind of, you know, like it's a grown man, that kind of choked me up, you know, because you know those they put it out there nightly, you know, and you know I'm sure they suffer all kinds of different, you know, maladies and stuff and pains and stuff, and yeah, it's not, you know, real, but it is real. Like, you know, like I'll sit there and watch them, like, yeah, I couldn't take that hit. Like, you know, or like if they slapped me like that, I'd be in a corner in the fetal position crying. And so, you know, like, but at least those couple of matches, you know, like they just put out. I've been watching that The Undertaker Last Ride on WWE, and man, like that dude is, you know, I have people that I know that have met him because he lives out there in Lakeway, and they say just the nicest dude. You know, he'll sit there and, you know, he'll talk to you, you know, if he has a little bit of time, and he'll, you know, you can ask him about whatever match, you know, and you know, and then he'll thank you for watching, you know, and give you a handshake and whatnot, and tell you he appreciates you. And you know, I think that's just how, you know, maybe not all of them are like, but I think they have a genuine love for the people that watch, you know, and so, you know, that's what I always think about when I watch. But those two matches in particular, for me, are ones that are like, you know, epic in my head. You know, my favorite matches.
I don't know about you, but when I go into work, I kind of take that mindset. You know, it doesn't matter what I'm going through. I need to finish the match, kind of, so to speak. You know, I think about guys like Mick Foley getting thrown off the cage and you know, getting back up and finishing the job. You know, a lot of times when I go into work, I think about it like that, and which is funny because it's a totally different
Right.
arena. But
Right.
that, in my mind, that's my mindset. And also, even like you know, I've heard guys say it doesn't matter where you are on the card, just do your best right where you're at. And that's kind of the same thing, the idea I take into work as well, or in other areas of life too. Doesn't matter where I'm at, I need to do the best, whether I'm first on the card, whether I'm the main event, doesn't matter. And I do a lot of, you know, different shows, and whether I start the show, whether I'm in the middle or whatever the case, just do the absolute best that I can. That's one of the things I learned from wrestling is,
Yeah.
you know, doesn't matter where you are on, you know, in your job or whatever, just do the best, you know, because somebody's going to see it. That's kind of where I do it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had a student this year, and he'll be with us one more year, and like that was kind of our connection, was wrestling. And so, because one day I was wearing an undershirt, and I just grabbed a shirt, but it was a Rock undershirt. And he's like, "What are you wearing?" I was like, "Oh, it's a Rock shirt." He's like, "You like wrestling?" I was like, "Yeah, I like wrestling." It's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Who's your favorite?" So we just got into this conversation. So every, you know, Monday we would sit there in the morning, and he would tell you, "You watch SmackDown on Friday?" I'm like, "Yeah, I watched it. It was pretty cool, you know." Like, so it was cool. But yeah, every once, you know, we would sit there and he'd want to talk about wrestling, or same thing, you know, like, "Who's your favorite wrestler? What was your favorite match?" And so, but it was not, you know, it's the same type of thing, you know, you're right. You know, you just think you got to do your best, perform your best, do your best work. And at the end of the day, if you can leave work and you know that you laid it all out there on the line, and again, it doesn't matter if, even if they didn't learn anything, but you loved on those kids and you took care of them and you protected them, and you knew that they know that you're real and you were authentic in what you were doing. That's all that matters, you know, no matter what.
Yeah, man. Well, that's all that I have for you. All the questions I have. Is there a place where people can see your music, any kind of social links or whatever the case is? Go ahead and shout them out, man.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we've been trying to do, you know, I've tried to do at least, you know, once a month on my Facebook page. It's Alan Sosa. I have we have a band page called Alan Sosa Music. So we post our songs there. Any songs that we've written, they'll be posted there. We're still trying to play once a month together. You know, we've gotten together once since we've been shut down and played a little set and whatnot. But that's usually where you can find my stuff. I have a SoundCloud page called Alan Sosa. So easy enough. And so, but yeah, that's what we do. You know, it's what we're doing. And you know, hopefully we'll be back playing Wake the Dead soon, and you know, can get back at it again and go from there.
If you ever need a supporting act, I'm more than available.
Hey man, I'm ready to guest or have you guest on one of my tracks. I'm trying to figure out like how I can fit you, how we can do some kind of collaboration. I think it'd be awesome.
I can do everything. Or at least I'd like to think I can do everything. I try to.
Hey,
you know, I grew up in the same era. I know we didn't get into it, but you know, Beatles, Elvis, Johnny Cash, we kind of come from the same kind of roots. So
yeah, man.
You know, I could try. Actually, I was listening to some Elvis last night. Me and my wife were talking about the movies from the '60s. So you know, I didn't realize that my wife was a fan of all those movies, and so am I. So kind of you just connect on that, and then you kind of reignites that love for the music. But
that's right.
But you know, man, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know both of us had some things to do today, but I really do appreciate you. I learned a lot about you. Man, it's awesome. Hopefully other people will learn and watch as well. And you know, I know both of us are guys that you can approach, and I think it's obvious here on this platform that that's the case. Thank you for sharing your testimony. Thank you for sharing your life. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it. I'm honored. Thank you for asking me, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for being available.
Definitely.
Well, man, I appreciate you.
Awesome.